Hey YouTubians, I'm Gary with VW Jawbreaker. Welcome back to the channel. If it's your first time here, thank you. If you've been returning, thank you. We appreciate it. Today's going to be a really interesting video. I'm going to go ahead and finally sit down and answer a bunch of questions I've been getting. I've been getting a lot of questions in the 2054 build about what parts I used, where I used them, how I used them, or why I used them. Also, I posted last week a picture of the engine and said, hey, if you have questions for today's video, drop them below. I'm going to answer them. We got some fantastic questions regarding this build, so we're going to go over those. So let's get set up. Let's get to work. There we go. There's the 2054 we're going to be talking about. Get some of the details in there for you. And thanks to VW. Yeah, man. Powered by Bratwurst and Beer. Thanks for the sticker, brother. I appreciate you, man. So there we go. That's what we're going to be talking about. Alright, guys. So here's what we got. We have our 2054 stroker engine. Ended up using a Autolina super aluminum case. It's clearance for 82 stroke and full float. So I started off with that base just to start fresh and keep on cranking. I ended up going with a counterweight 74 millimeter stroker crank. I used forged I-beam rods that are 5.4 inches long. Also inside the case is a Engle FK-8 cam. And I'm running 1.4 to 1 ratio rockers. Got a set of straight cut cam gears on there to keep the bind from going too much back and forth. Running a set of AA Performance 94 millimeter jug and piston set. Now for the top end, on top of the jugs and pistons, I'm using the CB Performance Ultra Mag heads with 42 by 37.5 valves, double valve springs. I'll actually go ahead and insert a picture here. Those intakes are huge. Those flow a lot of CFM. That's what helps this thing breathe. Now with those heads and the cam rockers, I actually am measuring 538 thousandths inch of lift. That's a lot of lift. To open those rockers, I'm using the CB Performance heavy duty aluminum push rods. And then for induction here, the intake manifolds are actually the CB Performance Big Beef intakes to match the head ports. I'll put a picture in here. As you notice, stock hole versus the other ones, they're massive. There's no way that I could have ran the stock intakes unless I would have welded a bunch of material at the end and then hogged the living daylights out of them. These are actually Weber 44 IDF carburetors. I'm running 36 millimeter Venturis, which are about the biggest I can get in there. The static compression on this engine is 10 to 1, but the dynamic compression ratio is 7.49 to 1, so I can easily run premium fuel that I get around town and stay on pump gas. Lighten everything off with the CB Performance MagnaSpark distributor. Really like how customizable this is. It's kind of one of those, you buy it and you just keep on growing with it. It's a nice distributor setup. To transfer the power, I'm running a stage 1 pressure plate with a solid Cushlock clutch disc. Now I can tell you this, that anytime you're doing an engine build, you always want to match your cam to the heads. Buy the biggest heads you can for your build that your budget will allow. And then once you have your heads picked and you determine your engine size, pick your heads. Then pick your camshaft. Then, depending on what your camshaft calls for compression-wise, set your engine to that. That is the easiest way to come up with your combination. Right now, I've got some pretty fat jets in this thing. I know I'm running rich, I can tell, I can smell, and that's fine. Believe it or not, we've got about 850 miles on this engine already. So it's time to go ahead and start dialing her back. But currently, I'm getting about 19.5 to 19.7 around town. I went for a 180 mile cruise yesterday through the back roads, just zipping along. Man, it was a beautiful day, cruising 55 to 65 miles an hour. I got 23 miles to the gallon out of a 2054. Yeah, there's more to come on that here later in the Q&A. Alright guys, well I had to kind of change locations a little bit. Neighbor decided to start mowing his grass, so we are out back. And it's time to go ahead and start knocking out the Q&A section. Like I said, we had some really awesome questions. I'd like to go ahead and start answering your questions and give you guys more feedback. So, the biggest question I got, but nobody posted it on the post, was, Gary, why'd you do a 2054? Why didn't you do a 2276 or a 2332? If you're gonna stroke it, stroke it. I agree. However, for me to go to a 2276 or a 2332, A, I had the wrong pistons that were brand new and the wrong rods. So I maximized what I already had. Those brand new jugs and pistons that had 90 miles on them from the 1915, those are non-stroker pistons. I could have maybe went to a 76 millimeter stroke, but then there was just way too many shims in between the case and the head. I ended up with 40 thousandths worth of shims. It's not much. To go to 2 more millimeters of stroke, I would have had to add quite a bit more shims. Engine's wider, tins don't fit as well, exhaust doesn't fit as well, and so on. That's why I stuck with a 74 millimeter. It's a nice compromise. All right, so I got it written down, guys. PR Kid 242 asked, how hard was it to set the rocker arm geometry? It's actually not very difficult at all. Bolt everything together, get everything squared away without your pushrod tubes. Dial indicator is going to be your friend. Once you've done rocker arm geometry, it's not difficult. It's just time consuming getting everything right, making sure that rocker arm is actually pivoting properly and you actually have things set. An adjustable push rod, one thing I do not have. I may do with what I had. I would recommend buying an adjustable push rod or making your own. Take and cut the end off and thread a rod or something in there, and it'll make it a lot easier than what it was for me. But that, like I said, it's not difficult. Once you go through it, understand the process, it's actually very simple. All right, so VW Rich Flat 4 asked, Gary, what's next? Well, it's pretty simple. We got to get this thing tuned in. We got about 850 miles on it now. And we know we're running pretty fat, which is better than running lean, but you still want to go ahead and tune it and get it optimized. The exhaust I'm running right now is an 1.5 inch merged header, and it's too small. And it's got rust holes all throughout it. So I need to go ahead and swap the exhaust. I picked a new one up yesterday from a good buddy of mine. So we're going to go ahead and jump up to an 1.5 inch merged header. And we're going to go ahead and put a wideband meter in this thing. Spoiler alert, next video. Let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and get this thing tuned in. Yes, I love you too, baby. Hi. Hi, babe. Hi. I know, you're such a good girl. So that's what's next. Proper size header and air fuel meter to go ahead and get these things dialed in better. Rob Sains asked, interested in the cam choice. How is the drivability, the torque curve, RPM range? Also, is this 2054 better, bless you, better than the 1915? Well, considering pretty much everything is the same except for the case and the crank, I can tell you this thing does have some more balls. It does have more torque than the 1915. As for the FK-8, it's a very popular cam. Along with the 1.4 rockers, it is absolutely a beast. How's the drivability? It's actually not bad. it's really not bad. The RPM range is actually about 3,000 up to, I think, 6,500. You okay there? You all right? Okay. So, I mean, it's got kind of a... People say it's not easy to drive around the street. I have no problem. I give her just a little bit of gas, let that throttle out, off she goes. But I can tell you, once it hits about 3,000 RPMs, you kind of, whoa, you start going back in the seat a little bit. It's, yeah. But drivability around town's not bad at all. It's actually very, I don't want to say mild, because it's kind of a little bit above mild, but it's very drivable. It's not as bad as some people make it sound. Let's see here. Figment 078 asked, what are my thoughts on using an OG thermostat on a high-powered build? Well, again, guys, this channel is all about my views, my thoughts, my experience. I'm down here in Central Florida. It's hot as crap. Most everybody that I know do not have stock thermostats on their Volkswagens, whether it be a stock or performance build. You live up north, and you have a thermostat set up, I would say, in my opinion, run it. It's only going to help it warm up and do better in the long run. I would say run it. That's just my opinion, though. All right, Jim Lester asked me about the MagnaSpark. I love it. I think you're going to love yours too. Hopefully your wife doesn't make you live in the garage too long for buying it. And I honestly think no matter what carburetor choice you make for your build, I think you're going to be good to go, man. Definitely do. Aaron asked me, what transmission am I using? Did I modify the stock transmission at all? That is a mystery transmission that came in my car when I bought it. 388 ring and pinion. Outside of that, I've done nothing to it but add fluid. That's it. It's not an ideal long-term situation now that I have the 2054, but it is working for now. It's handling the power just fine. The key is not dumping the clutch. No burnouts, guys. If you want to make your transmission last and not have your dog kick you off the couch, come on. I love you too. Don't dump the clutch. Don't do burnouts. Don't do donuts. VW Life, stop egging me on to break my transmission. All right, random person. That's actually his name, random person. Random person asked, what do myself or others do about head torque when building a powerful Type 1 engine? Head torque. Biggest thing I can tell you is normally you're going to have 8mm or 10mm studs. Follow the book regardless of the horsepower range. Again, in my opinion, build it. I built it. I torqued it to exactly what the Bentley said to torque it to for those size head studs that I have. I didn't go more. I didn't go less. Proper torque with the proper hardware. Broke in the engine. One thing you didn't see me do is I did go ahead and take the rocker arms off, the cylinder tin off, and I went ahead and went through the torque sequence again and made sure that everything was still nice and snug. Everything's nice and tight. I'm just leaving it alone. Again, my opinion and my experiences. Brent asked, do I find it hard to get the factory V-belt set up on the MST alternator stand? Well, it's actually a stock alternator stand. I'm sorry to disappoint you there, but that's a stock VW alternator stand with the firing order stamped in the bottom of it. So I have no problem going back to the stock V-belt from the Scat serpentine belt system that I was running. Joe Rengel asked, if I'm thinking outside the envelope here, do you see a chance of going direct injection? Dude, if I had the winning lotto numbers, sure. I'd love to have a CB Performance, injection set up on this thing with possibly even a turbo, even though I'm too high for compression ratio to run a turbo or nitrous or anything else. I would love to have a fuel injection kit on this thing, but I'm never going to spring for that kind of goodies. There's just no way I can afford that, or I could justify affording that. But I like where your head was going there. Let's see here. VW618 asks, what's the trans setup and how much more power moving from a 1641? Right now it's just a stock transmission, 388 ring and pinion. I don't know the gear ratios of first through fourth. It's just a stock transmission out of a IRS transmission, out of a, I believe it's a stock-ish to my car of 73, 74, somewhere in that early 70s range. How much more power from a 1641? Well, I can tell you this, bud. When I would drive my 1641 that I had in there before, which was a nice little build with dual carbs, I would kind of wind out first, second, and third to really get going in traffic. I'm finding now that I don't push the pedal very far, and I'm shifting by probably 3,500, 4,000 tops, and I'm up to 60, 65 in a blink of an eye. It moves really nice. Here's a great question. Levi's Backyard. I love my kid. He asked, why am I running a stock V-belt setup and not the serpentine kit that's in the garage? Well, we learned, if you go back a few videos, I'll try to remember to link it down below. I had a serpentine belt system on the 1915 and gunned it going around the corner to keep from getting T-boned, from getting him from school. The stock fan egg-shaped and just almost exploded inside the fan shroud. Here's the deal. Serpentine belt systems look cool, they work good, they're definitely, in my opinion, the belts probably last a little longer, but the belts don't slip. And that's a problem when you have a high-performance engine. If you're 100 horsepower and under, is pretty much what I'm gathering from CB Performance, MST, and some of the others that I've contacted. They're saying 100 horsepower so or less on a not very high revving engine. Their serpentine belt systems are great. On a stock pulley setup, because that stock pulley, that stock belt comes up and loops and doesn't wrap around as tight as a serpentine belt, it actually slips. So when you adjust your V-belt with just that little bit of slack in the belt to keep everything from getting worn out, that actually is designed to slip around 4,500 to 5,000 RPMs. Anything more than that, your fan starts slipping because it's sucking so much air in, it actually kind of just hits a wall where it can't push any more air out. So I did upgrade to a welded balanced fan, and I moved back to a stock V-belt setup. That way the fan will slip and not explode things and ruin my new engine. That would be bad. I'd cry and probably set my car on fire, to be honest with you, if that happened. All right, let's see if I can pronounce this one here. Brent Onroy Lucas asked, did I change anything with the carb setup? Jets, Venturis, etc. Right now I'm running the 44 IDFs with the 36 millimeter Venturis. Those are how I got the carburetors, with the 36 vents in it. I did have to change jets, and I know I'm running fat. We're going to go ahead and install the air fuel meter in it and see how fat we are, and go ahead and go through the tuning process by watching the tachometer and by watching the air fuel gauge, reading my air fuel mixture, and we'll determine exactly how far off I am. Am I too rich? Am I too lean? How are my air jets, my emulsion tubes? There's a lot to think about there. So we're going to dive into that here soon, and we'll do my best to bring you along for the ride on that one, and we'll learn this together. I don't tune modern cars, so using an air fuel gauge from my buddy is definitely a godsend, but at the same time, that's a little bit of a learning curve for me. We all learn. We're going to learn together. That's what this channel's about. So speaking of that, thank each and every one of you for being here. Thank you for your constant support. Thank you for the encouragement over the last several months. I've definitely needed it to keep moving along and keep me on track. So thank you. To the new subs, I appreciate you. We're here to learn together. I don't know it all, and I'm not an expert in anything. I'm just sharing my experiences with you so that way we can learn, grow together, and help keep these Volkswagens on the road. It's pretty simple. So thanks for watching. Hopefully it wasn't too long, too drawn out, but I appreciate each and every one of you. Do me a favor. Be kind to each other. Go out and do some random act of kindness for somebody. Be that better person. Until the next time, be good.